Tonight, Denver 7 Investigates is uncovering more issues inside Colorado funeral homes.
Funeral homes across the state have been heavily scrutinized in recent years, and for good reason. First, a funeral home made headlines for selling body parts without family consent on the Western Slope in 2018.
And then roughly 200 bodies were found decomposing inside a funeral home in southern Colorado, October 2023. Lawmakers and industry leaders have repeatedly called for more regulation of funeral homes in our state. Well, tonight, Colette Bordelon shows us why that regulation is so important, and it's not always for sinister issues.
She has this exclusive after helping a family track down the remains of their loved one, who was not laid to rest for more than a year.
Out of all the names at Fort Logan National Cemetery.
How can this happen? How can this happen?
One is missing.
They've done something shady, evidently.
This is a story about finding Norman Douglas Rumsey, whose family calls him Doug.
He was the cool uncle.
Doug died on December 6th, 2023.
I went in the Navy, came out of the Navy, and then in 63, and he's basically been on his own since then, just going here and there and having a ball.
This is his brother Leonard Rumsey, who's married to Kay, and they have a daughter, Lee. The family lives out of state and say all they wanted is Doug to be laid to rest at Fort Logan.
That's been over a year now, and I'm the last one in the family, so I'd like to try and get this taken care of, but it's like pulling teeth from an alligator. They're not cooperating whatsoever.
They are the funeral home that Doug paid roughly $1,000 to handle his cremation. At the time, it was called Colorado Funeral Homes, the Idaho Springs location. And the funeral home representative listed on the paperwork was Anthony Garcia. Running that business through the State Department of Regulatory Agencies, known as DORA, shows Colorado Funeral Homes had licenses for locations in Denver, Leadville, Silverthorne, Fort Collins, and Colorado Springs, too. You'll also notice most of those licenses were voluntarily surrendered in July of 2023, months before Doug died.
Why would they close their business down and then change their name? Because when we've been dealing with them, we have never been told this new name.
We noticed the website for Colorado Funeral Homes is similar to the website for Grand Valley Funeral Homes, which has locations in Grand Junction and Montrose. We ran that business name through DORA too, and it reflects the same license surrender in 2023 and lists the same owner, Anthony Garcia, for both Colorado Funeral Homes and Grand Valley Funeral Homes.
Contact with them has been difficult for you guys, but it sounds like you guys have told them your concerns. Is that accurate?
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 different phone numbers here I've called. They will go refer to this one, go to this one, go to that one.
We tried calling all the numbers listed online for both business names and all locations and experienced that issue too.
Hi there, is this Dawn? Good, how are you? It's Colette calling from Denver 7.
Before finally getting in touch with someone claiming to be one of the funeral directors, Don Maestas, who told us Colorado Funeral Homes did reopen with new licenses under a different name, Colorado Memorial Group. He says the funeral home never received a copy of Doug's will, and that once the family authorized them to take the remains to Fort Logan, they would do just that. This email from February 5th, after we got involved, apparently did the trick, and the funeral home told us they'd be delivering Doug soon.
I did also notice that the documents were signed by Anthony Garcia. Is he still with the company, or?
On this same phone call, we were told Anthony Garcia, the man listed as the funeral home representative on Doug's paperwork, is no longer with the company, but will still, quote, help out every now and then, with Maestas saying it was an inherited family business for Garcia. Documents from DORA show an investigation into a number of complaints about Colorado Funeral Homes and Grand Valley Funeral Homes. A complaint from 2021 says the funeral homes packed a decedent in ice, including in one of their eye sockets, and allowed that ice to remain in place for the family's viewing. And another complaint in 2022 alleged the funeral home failed to return purses and other items to families, did not maintain a complete crematory logbook or transport logs, and left unidentified cremains in the crematory chamber. When Grand Valley Crematory was inspected in December of 2022, It found there was no refrigeration on site, and an audit of 3 decedent files contained no chain of custody records or receipts. All of these details are listed in this order, requiring the funeral home and crematory registrations be relinquished. It was signed in July of 2023 by Garcia.
So Dawn told us you were no longer with the company.
I'm like half part-time.
But Garcia is who we ran into, dropping off Doug's ashes when we were waiting at Fort Logan for them to be delivered on February 11th.
What was the reason that you had to take a step back or sell?
I'm doing other stuff, other businesses and stuff now.
Garcia told us Maestas, who identified himself as one of the current funeral directors, would be best for an interview. So we asked, but instead got a statement. The statement says in part that notes indicate Mr. Rumsey was estranged from the family for some time, and that his wishes were for the cremains to be given to a friend. The statement says, with all the dynamics and confusion with family, friends, next of kin, prior funeral directors were confused and concerned.
They also continually are saying it was our understanding the family was estranged. What's your reaction to that?
That makes me upset. Uncle Doug, it's my mom, my dad, me, my brothers. We are his family.
The statement continues to say the funeral home got the authorization through a phone call and email with Leonard, confirming there were no next of kin or other family members. But if you look at the death certificate, a child is listed. Joseph Mueller. We talked with Joseph, who confirmed what the family says, that he met Doug just a few months before he passed away and also wanted him interred at Fort Logan. Colorado statute states both children and siblings can have the right to control disposition of last remains in the absence of a will.
I actually will tell people that I do death and dirt because I do a lot of that, but I also do a lot of real estate and title work.
Heidi Gassman is an attorney who specializes in trusts and estates and has done so for the past 30 years.
Generally, in between cremation and delivery to the family, I would not expect to see more than a week or two. Funeral homes are not set up to store remains unless they're asked to, but they generally don't like to, in my experience.
For the Rumseys, it took more than a year for Doug to make it to Fort Logan. And another twist in this story, Colorado Memorial Group's licenses expired exactly a week after Doug's remains were delivered, after an issue with payment for renewing their registration was not resolved.
Uncle Doug has been found. Uncle Doug is laid to rest. We know where he is, and that is a big burden off all of our chests, knowing that we know where he is. He's not lost anymore. So thank you.
But there's one question that lingers for the family.
If it's not just us, how many other ones have they done this to? Dig into it deep enough to where something is done and it has to be fixed.
Hoping there's never another name missing from the place where they can finally rest. With photojournalist Jordan Ward, Colette Bordelon, Denver 7.
A long time coming. Thank you, Colette. Digging deeper, for decades, Colorado had some of the weakest funeral home regulations in the country.
In 1977, the General Assembly ended a rule that required funeral directors to be licensed in the state. In late 2023, the Department of Regulatory Agencies published a review of this industry, and it found that the public was harmed by the lack of regulation of funeral service professionals and recommended the General Assembly regulate funeral directors.
That prompted lawmakers to take action. Last year, Governor Jared Polis signed a package of bills to strengthen regulations. One of those reinstates licensing requirements for directors, embalmers, and morticians. That takes effect in 2027. Another law requires funeral homes and crematories to be inspected on a routine basis.